Gentlemen, you are both drunk on cosmic wine.
Welcome to the show. I'm Dr. Mark Sylvester.
And I'm Dr. Richard Schulman. This is Alt Psych.
Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us for another edition of The Non-Ordinary Mind.
We have three non-ordinary minds here, so.
Well, at least two. At least two non-ordinary. So, welcome back.
Not a compliment.
Welcome back to Austin, right?
Hi, Austin.
Hello.
She was so popular on our last show. The comments were all the same. Like, do you guys have to be there? Can't she just do it? Or why don't you show more of Austin? Because she's way more entertaining than you guys. Which, real funny. But,
Well, I can see it's a stabilizing.
You're right, actually.
Well, I'm happy to be back.
The viewers are always right. So we got more Austin. She is, in addition to all of her practice management, helping us with the Alt Psych show. A lot of audiovisual stuff going on here too, and providing us with some really cool videos of ghosts and goblins during our Spirits and Phantasm show. So, without further ado, welcome, and to the good Dr. Schulman as well. We are covering Transcendental meditation and holotropic breathwork today. Two topics I'm excited about, and I think that they go together nicely. What do you think, Rich?
Well, from a certain I guess, are you ever an ex-hippie? I don't know.
Old hippies never die; they just flash back.
Well, if you haven't done a lot of LSD, maybe you flash forward. I don't know. I think they actually are connected because they both require that the participant actually participate in the journey, and they both wind up with an altered state of consciousness, non-ordinary consciousness, which will lead to non-ordinary mind, which I think fits our mission statement pretty well. And I've had a lot of experience in holotropic breathwork, although I never did a transcendental meditation. Are you a meditator there, Mark?
I am. I like to tell myself that I am. I certainly have, and certainly have done a lot in the past, but I do the ironical thing of getting too busy and stressed for meditation. So,
isn't that when you're supposed to meditate?
Exactly. That's the irony there. But I can get us started with transcendental meditation. I think that will go a little bit quicker because we really have a lot of content on the holotropic breathwork, and there's some exciting stuff coming up. I want to make sure we get to that. So let's hop right into it. Austin, do you have a slide?
I do.
Are we ready for it?
We are.
Because I forgot what the first one was. Yes. So we're going to leave this elderly fellow up here for our viewers to try to guess who this is. We'll give you a little bit of time while I'm talking about, what transcendental meditation is, how it's useful, where it came from, what does it all mean, Basil? But a quick definition is it's a specific form of a silent mantra meditation. And the organizations that constitute the Transcendental meditation movement they really own their existence to this fellow. Have we figured out who it is, viewers? Has anybody typed in? Austin, has anyone got the answer? All right, well, then I am depressed. This is the one and only, actually, Rich, why don't you guess?
George Harrison of the Beatles, right?
Yes, it's George Harrison. No, Maharishi Mahesh, because he is credited for the TM movement and the Transcendental Meditation movement, really going back, of course, he's in India in the mid-50s. And I like this slide here because it shows, the goal of transcendental meditation really is to achieve the nirvana, the state of enlightenment. Um, and what does it feel like? People are always like, yeah, I meditate. When you're there, when you're in the zone, or or close to, peeking behind the robe of God, it means we experience inner calmness. It's probably a deep relaxation, meaning there's very little excitation. Um, and you get this crucible of input that boils down to essentially the nothingness, the oneness of being. And what you find there is quite fascinating. Rich, I know you have an experience for us on the holotropic side, but what can you speak of on transcendental meditation in terms of the experience?
Well, based on, since I was not a transcendental meditator, but I've had a lot of experience with non-ordinary states, non-ordinary realities. I remember once I was practicing Ashtanga yoga and I was in a headstand, and all of a sudden I was weightless and I felt like I was a spoke on the earth. I could feel the earth turning, and it was quite fascinating in that it was a different kind of calm than you get in your
Mm.
ordinary walking around state, even if you think you're calm. This was such a deep experience, and I stayed in that headstand for a long time. I remember my teacher, when I came out of it, he said, something happened to you? What happened? And I was incredibly calm. I mean, it was uncanny. And I stayed there the whole day. And, and I don't know if it was just, I was ready for it. It was an accident, or somebody put, acid in my cornflakes that morning. But I don't think the last one is true. I just know that it was a different experience, and it stayed with me. And I remember telling my teacher, I think this is what we're kind of supposed to do on a regular basis to be able to really be human. I thought it was beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, they're really profound experiences too. They stick with you for a long time when you don't forget that calmness and that centeredness and the groundedness. It's almost as if you're plugged into something, and it's
Nothing
familiar, but at the same time foreign.
nothing bothered me that whole day.
Yeah,
Usually there's something to bother me, but nothing bothered me that day. There's a scene in the movie The Matrix,
oh, I know
spoiler
the scene.
alert, where bullets are coming at Neo, and well, there's the one where he pulls the bullets out of the air, and I think I saw the same stress.
Whoa.
They should have picked him. He really could.
I
I
think
think
he's
we
been
would get a new
practicing
career for you,
that.
brother.
No,
I
they
think
picked
that's what the
me up
meditation is supposed to do, that you can pull the bullets out of the air before they hit you, because life comes at us pretty hard. And certainly
hard and fast.
yeah, right. So if you can slow it down, I think that's the whole purpose of doing transcendental meditation, to slow life down. So you can respond rather than react.
Do we have some more slides on TM?
We do.
Oh yeah. So these make me want to transcendentally meditate. Now, I like this guy because how good at meditating would you truly be if you had a king cobra sitting on your groin with your eyes shut? I mean, that shows enlightenment, that this guy can focus and channel his chi and crouch his kundalini, and um, you know,
Well,
build the chakras up.
in places like India, as opposed to Americans who want to get their transcendental meditation at McDonald's. Um,
So
they'll
so
train for years, and there's physical training that goes along with it. If you take that cobra and imagine that's actually the Kundalini energy, they'll be, the yoga is to get your body in shape to withstand the movement of the energy, and
Yeah.
to be able to be calm in that chaos. Um, and I think that's, we have a lot of chaos in this society. So if the TM can help you to be calm in that chaos, that's really a powerful event. This picture, I think, represents something a little more, and we'll do a show on Kundalini at some point.
Yep. We
But
do have a show coming up.
there's the guy looks pretty calm, and you're right, Mark. If somebody can stay calm with the cobra right there, that's pretty calm.
On their junk. Well, let me
Well,
tell you a little
actually,
bit.
anywhere in the room would do it for me.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't be in the room if there was a king cobra there. But a little more specifics, I guess, on transcendental meditation. On the logistics, I want to speak to before kind of going into holotropic breath work, which to me is a lot more of the where the rubber hits the road and the nuts and bolts of techniques used to achieve a similar state as transcendental meditation can provide. The mantras are obviously part of it. Usually twice a day, it takes maybe 15-20 minutes. So this isn't like you're not a Buddhist monk that's having to go up into the mountains and meditate for weeks on end. This is something you can do at work, right? 15-20 minutes a day.
Well, it fits
Twice a day.
that ultradian rhythm, that 20-minute, where you get a deep relaxation in 20 minutes. And there is like Western scientific data that says a 20-minute relaxation will refresh you.
Yeah, and it does. This has really been researched going on 70 years now, really since the birth of transcendental meditation and a lot of the techniques. There was an interesting argument, and Rich, you may remember this, because early on, I think it was in the 70s, they were actually teaching meditation in schools. And that, of course, created some controversy because uh, the question came up, is this religious or non-religious in nature? Because we do have separation of church and state, and we don't want necessarily religion taught in school. But I think most of the practitioners of meditation would argue that's different from prayer or different from religion. It's really a technique to kind of calm your mind, calm your body.
Well,
But
that kind of argument showed up with yoga too. And
really,
yeah, in schools, and they were saying, well, it's just exercise. Well, it's not just exercise, and TM is not a religion, but it is spiritual. And I think go figure, there's a tremendous amount of fear in this society about anything that doesn't fit some kind of official narrative.
well, and true to form, the U.S. Court of Appeals upheld a federal ruling that transcendental meditation was essentially religious in nature, therefore could not be taught in public schools. So it was all yanked at that point, hasn't been taught since in
And
school.
there are several studies about what happens when you teach kids meditation instead of sending them to detention. The rates of acting out behavior go down dramatically. But why would we want that?
Yeah.
I mean, we want, and our society seems to be based on divisiveness and chaos rather than being calm and connected. So, we're just anyway. That's what I look at all the time. And yeah, people would be a lot happier if they did transcendental meditation. Kids would learn that and learn yoga, but maybe next year. So what else you got on TM, Mark?
Well, I want to move on to holotropic breath work because
Okay.
there's a lot of components that are overlapped and we can kind of transition into that. So I was hoping to learn from you a little bit about this holotropic breath work that you speak of. Do we have some more slides,
All
Oh,
right.
oh, yeah, that's a sign. We're supposed to go into holotropic breathwork. I love it. I love it. She's breathing. Does she have a hole in her forehead? She's breathing in the good stuff, the go juice.
I think
But
it,
it's coming out of her
she's
third
breathing in
eye.
chi, Mark.
Huh?
She's breathing in life energy, my friend, and that third eye is just cooking away.
It's just there for the ride, but I like that. I like that slide.
I like it too. So, what do you want to know about holotropic breathwork? I will say that I did it a lot uh, in the late 80s, early 90s. I did it so much that my therapist out in California said, that I was an altered states junkie, even if I
Hmm.
wasn't taking drugs. And his recommendation was do it once and think about it for 6 months.
Yeah.
And it's actually wasn't a bad idea.
No, it's good advice, but I mean, we've talked about holotropic breath work before, but just kind of as in lip service, promising that we would do a whole show dedicated to it. So I guess remind our viewers, just in a general sense, what it is and what's the goal of it. And then I know you know a lot about the history and the process. I want to
Well, the
touch on
history
all that
is
too.
connected to the process because the history, Stanislav Grof, who was the developer of holotropic breath work, was an LSD researcher. And at some point in the mid 60s, they outlawed LSD because it had become something that was on the streets. And, and depending on what you believe about why it got there, doesn't matter. People were taking and getting in trouble. So they outlawed it, but they also, to me, a crazy thing, they outlawed research on it too.
Yeah.
We don't want to know about it. It's like, what?
Like
But anyway,
marijuana.
Groff used a bunch of different things to create the psychedelic effect
Oh,
without
here's our
using a
friend right
drug. So
there.
he used, consciousness research and things from anthropology, depth psychology, transpersonal psychology, Eastern spiritual practices and mystical traditions. And he came up with this process. And I just kind of stumbled into it because of a therapist in Tampa that I knew. He said, well, I'm doing this thing. You'll think it's cool. So why don't you come in, and try it? And, cool always really appealed to me.
So
So I
let me
came in and I had no idea what I was going to experience. I didn't read anything on it.
Well, it
And
says right here, each of us can manifest the properties of a field of consciousness that transcends space, time, and linear causality. So you should have read that before you went in, and you'd have known what you were getting into.
well, you're right, but I might have like skewed the experience if I knew what was going on. What it relies on is an innate inner wisdom that if you get into a certain frame of mind, certain level of consciousness, you're going to be drawn to something that is healing of maybe a past trauma or opens you to a higher reality. And it's really very simple technique. It's not complicated. It's you breathe a little faster and a little deeper than you would ordinarily. You lie down, of course, on a mat with your eyes closed. You breathe a little faster and a little deeper than you would ordinarily do so. And they have this evocative music that stimulates uh, I guess, your energy field, your brain, your mind, whatever. It was really fantastic. And you access non-ordinary consciousness, non-ordinary mind, non-ordinary experiences. Basically, what the facilitator said in my first experience really worked. She says, "Well, just breathe a little faster, a little deeper till you get a surprise." And boy, did I get a surprise!
What was the first thing that popped up?
Well, it was pretty amazing. I really at first it was sort of, what the hell is this? This is stupid. What am I doing? I'm lying on the floor, breathing, with a bunch of other people. And then all of a sudden, I re experienced being with my grandmother, and then had the understanding that I had never grieved her death, and went into this deep, incredible grief experience. And it was amazingly deep. Um, and then once I had released that, I started laughing, just this deep, beautiful feeling that I was laughing. And then all of a sudden, it was amazing. My body's got all tight like this, and my consciousness seemed to split,
Mm,
because there was a part of me that was hanging out here, like doing commentary like a sports announcer.
yeah.
And well, he's coming down the birth canal now, sort of like, and it was incredibly painful. My body was seizing up, and it was all involuntary movements. And then I felt the top of my head get cold. I didn't know what was happening, except this part of me was going, yeah, he's about to get born. Yeah, he's coming down the birth canal now, Bob. Yeah, got great defense on the ball club, good pitching too. That's what it sounded like. And then I felt myself go through, like I slid through something, and there was electricity everywhere in my body, and I could see it in my mind going. Especially, I could see my skull lighting up, and all kinds of
Did it look like
electric.
that?
Yes, actually, very much like that. And I had no awareness of what it was or what I really, except for the commentary. I said, oh yeah, well maybe that's a birth thing. Um, but I didn't understand the electricity until I talked to someone years later, described the experience, and she said, oh, that was your soul entering your body. And it was like, oh yeah, that made perfect sense. Now, conventional wisdom says that you can't have that memory. But I'm telling you, you can. And
And
it was
Groff
really,
describes that in all of his books.
it's really profound. It was really profound. It gave me um, a whole new awareness of what was possible to access. And I have had many, amazing experiences in holotropic breathwork, including, being in the womb kinds of experiences, experiencing some intrauterine trauma, hearing my parents fight, while I was in the womb. And, anytime you do something like this, whether it's hypnosis or meditation or breath work, um, you know, you have to play along. It's not like we can document, well, your parents had an argument at 5 months, 3 weeks, and 2 days into your pregnancy, but it felt right, and it made sense. And there was another one where there was definitely a blockage, and I could have made it up, but I don't think so, because I wasn't thinking about it. I had had severe colic as an infant, because I remember my mother telling me about it, and I re-experienced it. It was incredible. Lots of really interesting experiences, and what happens at the end of the group is really kind of amazing too, because everybody's kind of calmed down now. The music is gentle, and you finish up and you draw mandalas, to express what you've been through. Then you take a break, and then everybody talks about it.
Well,
And
so I want to know about the process. Like I want our listeners to know like nuts and bolts on how it works, what they got to do. Like what's the general process for holotropic breath work, and in terms of evoking that state, that non-ordinary state, or that targeted state of consciousness?
well, that breath is an important connector whenever you're looking for um, non-ordinary experiences, because every spiritual path will talk about, three elements: sit down, shut up, and breathe. And
I
as
like
you and I have talked about many times, the breath will connect the conscious and the subconscious. It's
Mm.
because you can just breathe. You don't have to think about it, but you can observe and control it. And the more that you observe and control it, the bigger the link is going to be. It's going to connect, so you can, get a sense of what's going on unconsciously. And then the music plays a big role, because music is always playing a big role in spiritual life, from the banging of drums, in shamanic societies, to the singing of choirs in the church, the giant organs, that they have in some churches. This is not by accident.
And we've talked a lot about music therapy. One of my favorite shows, because we really went into the connection between song, tones, uh, all the way to experience. So everything it does, from vibrating the string to vibrating the air to entering our ear and vibrating inner ears, and then being we went into a lot of detail on that show, and I really liked that, because it helps understand the process of literally how sound and music and song change the way that we think or feel. And so it's used similarly during the holotropic work and sessions to help prepare the consciousness, or facilitate consciousness, to get to that non-ordinary state, which is super cool.
Well, for me, music, it plays a huge role in my life, and for many people. Um, if you go back to the time of Pythagoras, he's looking for that golden ratio. It's vibrational. And recently, I had the experience of going into the recording studio and playing, putting down acoustic guitar tracks for about 3 hours. And then I wanted to document, for the band's website. So I said to the sound guy, let's take a picture of us. And you look at that picture, and my eyes are like on fire, as if,
Like a crazy person. What do you mean on fire?
like a person who had touched, you said, to look behind God's robe. I mean, I
Oh,
was just so clear. Everything was it was like lit up through here. It was really beautiful. And
so
I get that experience when I play with the band as well. And I could be really, really tired at the end of everything we have to do, because, you got to knock things down and put them away. And I'll look in the mirror at when it's like I'm stoned. It's
I'm
incredible.
not
And
stoned.
my body
You're
won't
stoned.
tolerate drugs. So that's, music is about the best I can do. And so the idea that music would be a part of this while you're doing this breath thing that's opening you up physiologically, I think is a pretty amazing thing.
I mean, and people can get pretty far down the rabbit hole. Is that why the sitters are important, and breathers? So tell us more about that.
Well, the way the process works is you go in two-person teams, and you have one experience in the morning and one in the afternoon. And what happens is that there's a person, I know it sounds crazy, one breathes and the other sits. I guess you don't have to hold your breath
Well,
during that
see, now
process.
in this image, we have God breathing into his little pet human. Is that what's meant by sitters and breathers? Because
I don't exactly think so. Basically, what you have, it's a spin-off from what Groff's research with LSD, where he created a safe space for the person who was journeying. So he would have, maybe he was the sitter, I don't know. But if a person needs anything, you're not intrusive, but like if they have to go to the bathroom, you take them there. If they need a drink of water, you get them a drink of water. If they're upset, you comfort them. Um, and I had actually some amazing experiences being a sitter. And I can't remember if I actually talked about this on an earlier show, but there was a woman who was, her sitter was not tracking. My journeyer was asleep, snoring. And I saw that she was in a panic mode, and I'm going, well, what do I do about this? It's not really my place. And I could see that she wanted, it was like she was going like this. And I said, oh, to hell with it. I leaned over and the music is blaring. And I said, look, I'm not going to hurt you. I'm going to touch you. I'm going to count to three. I'm going to touch you gently on your throat, and I want you to scream. So I went 1, 2, 3, and I touched her, and she let out this incredible scream. And she got everybody's attention. You know, the facilitator came over, her sitter started paying attention to her. Well, I wondered what was going to happen the next time the group met. We met about once a month. And I had never spoken to this person before. There were about 30 people in the group. At the beginning of the next group, she made a beeline for me and she said, I want to thank you. When you touched my throat, I reclaimed the memory of being molested by my uncle. And I confronted him, and he not only apologized and told me the circumstances, that he was a drunk at the time, drug addict and drunk.
It wasn't my fault. I was drunk.
Well, he's in recovery now, and he's paying for my therapy.
Good.
And I love that idea that he was making restitution to her
Amends, yeah.
by paying for her therapy. That's the way it's supposed to go.
Yep.
You know?
Yep. That's terrific.
So even as a sitter, there can be powerful experiences. And I've been as a sitter, part of a group of people creating a birth canal for somebody to go down. So it was actually, and I facilitated groups. I can't call them holotropic breathwork because, you know, I didn't go through the Groff training, but you don't have to be Albert Einstein to pick up the model. And I ran my own version of this for years. And I remember one time I had 4 people going through birth trauma at once, and I only had 2 helpers. So we had to do a little triage. It's great stuff.
What advantages do you think being in the group setting has? Because one of the things that fascinates me is that, I mean, it can be done individually, I know that, but it seems to work better in groups. And interestingly, so does Transcendental meditation. And I've thought a lot over the years as to why. Now, the show we did on collective unconscious, or the collective consciousness, collective unconscious, was, you know, if you use that same thinking, if you have a group doing a similar type of work like holotropic or transcendental meditation, why does it work better? Is it because everyone is focusing their energy and thought on the same thing, and maybe through either presence in the room or the collective unconscious piece itself, that, you know, thought might intermingle, and then if this group over here is gone deeper, it might help bring you deeper, kind of thing? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I will start by saying this is my opinion rather than something I've researched.
No, you're an expert. I just declared you an expert.
But all right, let me say it.
Everything you say is fact.
There you go. It's my experience. How's
Okay.
that? People resonate with each other in this kind of experience. There's a safety level in being in a big group as well. I think there's just more energy. And I think it's close to what you said about directing the thought in a certain direction. And if everybody is kind of with it. And I remember when I would do these groups, I would actually insert like hypnotic things, you know, especially when they reach the end, because they could go much deeper at that point. Groff doesn't do that. I would stand in the middle of these people who were completely zoned out, and I would say, take a look at your heart. And boom, you could feel the whole group go down a level.
Yeah.
Well, do you see a golden heart? Do you see a flesh and blood thing? Do you see, you know, puppies and flowers, roses? Boom. And think about your heart. Where is your heart hurt? Boom. Where is your heart healed? It was just amazing because they were already open. That the breath work and the experiences, we would do it for a whole weekend. People were very, very open. And then when you trust that inner wisdom, spectacular things can occur. So yeah, I actually do think that there's something to a bigger energy. Now, I wonder what would happen if there were, you know, like 50,000 people doing it at once. I don't know. I think they've tried things like that.
Yeah, that you can definitely extrapolate it, and that would be super powerful and super interesting to be among a large group like that. I don't know. I don't know if that's just accentuates the process, accelerates it, or adds to some sort of like fellowship like quality.
Well,
But to me,
the old Jews had this thing about having 10 people to pray.
mhm.
And I think that, anybody can pray, but there was something about having a minimum of 10 that created a certain energy that, I don't know, maybe made you more stoned or got you higher, or maybe you were more receptive. I'm not really sure of the process. I just know that it's in our culture, and my experience is, yeah, it does work better.
Well, so educate us on the cartography of the psyche. You touched on it a little, but
Well, the last week you went through a lot of parts of Groff's, um, you know, breaking down of uncanny events. For holotropic breathwork, he has three basic pieces. There's the perineal, which is the birth experience, intrauterine experience, and birth traumas. And then there's biographical, which could be any kind of trauma. And then there's the transpersonal. People have really interesting experiences that are beyond their dot to dot awareness of their life's journey. People will see dead relatives, or they will, some of the things we've talked about, they will
mhm.
experience past lives. They will talk to angels, the guardian, spirit guides. It opens things very, very powerfully.
I mean, it certainly falls in the non-ordinary mind realm, and
Well, it's funny when you do it a lot, it becomes, just part of your consciousness. It's only non-ordinary because we don't think about it in our everyday culture.
well, and I have a ton of ideas and thoughts and questions, but Austin has indicated that we have a couple from our viewers. Um, I'm gonna let you answer them, especially if I don't know them.
Well, we're a
But
good team. If I don't know him, you'll answer him,
Austin, did I misread that? Do you have a question
We do have a
from a viewer?
question. Betty from Sarasota wants to know, you've mentioned being stoned or being high a few times
Oh
during
yeah.
the experience.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought she was asking a different question. Go on.
So how is this different from taking LSD?
Well, I'm not a great LSD expert. I did experience it once, and it's one of the funnier stories of my ill-spent youth. Um, the main difference is that it is a psychedelic experience, the holotropic breath work. I thought it was superior in that you could turn it off, and if you had enough, all you had to do was walk outside, and or have something to eat, and it was over. And there was no sort of afterburn on it. There was, I found that, I was felt uplifted. I never felt depressed after one of those. And I've talked to lots of people who have taken lots of LSD, and there was, very often a depression that would occur afterwards. Um, Also, the holotropic breathwork did not disturb your sleep cycle.
Hmm.
To me, look, if two aspirin is good, don't mean 200 is better. And this was, this was in dosages, so to speak, that were more easily processed. And even so, in the 2 hour or whatever it is, I think the longest journey I ever went on was 2.5 hours. So things will come up, then you talk about them, you process.
Mm.
And to me, psychologically, that was really healthy because you're now integrating that information. What I've seen with people on LSD is when they're done, they're not sitting around processing, they're kind of crashing.
So what you were saying is, an hour and a half or 2 hours into the holotropic trance, you could go right into processing versus.
Well, it's no. You could, but it's not. What you do is, because there's a whole process to how the music goes. and it, I think it reflects what happens in terms of when you access that part of the brain or the mind or whatever is really being activated. But if you like hit a trauma, let's say, and you don't want to do this anymore, okay, so I've had enough, or I want to go talk about this, you can stop, go outside, you know, hang out, have something to eat, have some water. You're not still tripping.
Yeah,
So
so
it's far more manageable in my experience.
well, I mean, the question was how does it compare to LSD, but then we kind of went into the answer of the therapeutic value of it, you know, like holotropic, and then the therapy that comes out of that, or psychedelic assisted psychotherapy on LSD. They're
I
kind of
think
two.
I'm thinking more. I guess I'm thinking more about, you know, kids that were using it, you know, for like a trip to Disneyland. You know,
Yeah.
um, maybe
But
in smaller doses you could do the same thing with LSD,
oh,
but
I
that's
see.
not the standard. What we've seen both in our practices, but you know, I think because the research got shut down so many years ago, we've lost a lot. I think psychedelics are the great problem child of psychotropic medication, and with possibly the greatest return. But
But
they were lost for a long time.
I mean, I'll partially answer that tail end of that question in that, and really the only thing I could add is that LSD doesn't guarantee that you're gonna either A, have some sort of a transpersonal experience or religious experience, um, and B, that it's even going to be a positive experience, because there are people that have hellish, like, you know, bad acid trips, and then like you said, you've got 12 hours of chemical, let's just say torture, to chemical to psychological torture, whereas with the holotropics, bam, you can pop right out of it.
Well, you know, like in any kind of therapeutic endeavor, if you hit a trauma, it's going to be uncomfortable while you process it, but you're not locked in biochemically to it. I think that
Right.
point is
Yeah,
really well taken.
I'd say we expertly and completely answered that question.
Okay.
Are there any more that have rolled in, Austin? Pick a good one.
Okay, we have one other one. Stanley from Tampa wants to know, what is acoustic stimulation and how does it work?
Well, acoustic stimulation is music.
Yeah, what the hell
Well,
stimulation?
but I mean, I guess there are some. I've never experienced this, but there are some groups that will use real drums or didgeridoo or something to get people in the zone. What I observed and what I thought was effective was there were certain sounds that connected to certain parts of the body. So those big drum beats and didgeridoos, that was the lower, you know, sort of your in your pelvic region. And as you moved up, literally, in my opinion, through the chakras, you were, you know, you were getting into like in your gut. There would, what would activate your gut would be horns, loud trumpets, and then as you get to the heart, it's more strings, your heart strings, and then you would move up into flutes, and then you would get into, you know, choirs up here, the process was really quite amazing because you were on a journey through your body, through your chakras, and you know when there was something that was being held, and uh, at a certain point it would activate. Now, I don't know if this was sort of some kind of mini Kundalini experience, or I couldn't tell you what it was, but I can tell you that it worked. And that when you went through the whole experience, there was a completion. And most of the people who did this kind of thing uh, felt complete. And I believe that the change in the music, and when I facilitated this stuff, it was amazing because I never knew what I was going to play, and I had about 400 CDs and two CD players and a mixer, and I'd feel what was going on in the group, and then I would, you know, I would shift the energy. It was really it was an amazing experience as the facilitator to do that.
So that's what the question that's what the question was really getting at, is the role of acoustic stimulation or music or tempo or any of that concurrently with the holotropic group work, right?
Absolutely. The
Okay.
whole point is to move the group through the various vibrations, and we'll see who reacts to what.
Mm.
You know, that was my experience both as a participant and as a facilitator in my own version of this. I want to just touch base for a second with something you said earlier. You said people can have bad acid trips. Uh, can have unpleasant experiences in holotropic breath work, in that they can connect with a trauma that's very painful for them, like that woman who was next to me, in that who had re-experienced a sexual mistreatment.
Ooh, I like
And
that picture.
but I found for the most part that that's like any other therapy, powerful deep therapy that connects with trauma.
Yeah, and it's pretty profound when it comes out, and like you said, it can potentially be overloading, or I don't want to say dangerous. It can open a can of worms, but you're in a much better environment, certainly more supportive and therapeutic than the tricks your mind can play on you. Like, oh my God, I'm on acid. Am I going to feel this way the rest of my life? Or worse, start to project out your own fears because of the drug experience itself. Like, I, we talked about psychedelics on the show before, and I think I always try to provide the good with the bad, because when done in the correct setting for the correct person and the correct indication, there's proven utility. Like we've talked before about Michael Midhofer and the research up in South Carolina on MDMA and PTSD, and I think there's a tremendous amount of hope and excitement and insight that they're gaining. But there's also, like you said, the problem child is there has to be a tremendous amount of understanding and competency and using those in clinical practice that I don't know, unless you're uniquely trained and qualified, that we're close to, either legally, but even logistically, medically, being able to reproduce on a larger scale, because that's one of the hopes and goals of the movement, is that we can start to use psychedelics in a more therapeutic way, but in a very broad, you know, societal sense. And
Every
we've started to see inroads. There's inroads there. I mean, even
every intervention has risk and reward, timing and dosage. And we seem to forget that in this culture. And every human being is a little bit different.
mhm.
We look for one size fits all everything, because it reduces our anxiety, and reduces kind of the amount of homework that we need to do. But I think it's a very, very important thing, especially if you're going down the road like looking at MDMA and PTSD, because you're dealing with fragile people.
Well, and that individual themselves can change. So they might not react the same way to an intervention six
Exactly.
months ago as 6 months from now, or
See,
or
Austin,
even,
this is why I trust this guy as a doctor.
yeah. Wait, who are we
Yes.
talking? What?
No, I actually do trust Mark. No, that was exactly
Wow.
right. And I don't know a lot of doctors that think like that.
Well, on that note, we're out of time. Do you have a, well, yeah, I don't think
I
we'll
thought I'd
have to
sneak in a
save our
commercial for how
questions.
good you are, Mark.
Thanks. Yeah, it's getting uncomfortable in here. No, we got an exciting topic next week. Yeah, everyone just feast your eyes on that, and that will trip you out, and you won't know whether you did LSD or holotropic breath work or transcendental meditation. But I'm excited because one of my favorite topics on non-ordinary, and it dovetails well into what we spoke about today, is of course hypnagogy and hypnopompi. I feel like a lot of people haven't heard of this, and then the ones that have heard of it really don't truly know what it is. So we're going to cover all that next week. It's going to be
Okay.
uber exciting.
Well, it's always fun talking about these topics because it's it's something that I love to think about, and that's that we have a passion for.
We certainly do. And I think hypnagogy, hypnopompi certainly qualify as a non-ordinary state. I like that it's happened to most people. And so they don't think of it as something out there woo woo. It's something like a deja vu. Everyone's like, oh yeah, I've had that. But it really gets you thinking about consciousness and the way that it changes and shifts throughout a 24-hour cycle, whether that's a daydream versus a transcendental meditation, or what we're going to be talking about, like hypnagogy, hypnopompi, or even delirium, or creativity. It's some other fun topics we got coming up next week. So unless you have any burning desires, Austin, I thank you for doing our images this week.
You are very welcome. Hopefully next week we'll have a few more viewer questions to share.
Yes, please post questions down below and click those links over there and like and subscribe and all the other stuff we're supposed to say. But you remember what's the most important thing to say, Rich, right?
1, 2, 3, 4.
Be
Be
well.
well.
Who goes to 4? We didn't practice that.
Band, we always go to 4.
Damn it, we're gonna have to record the whole thing all over again.
4/4 timing.
Back to the drawing board for you.
1, 2, 3, 4. Bum, bum, ba-dum, ba-dum.
Be well. Until next time. Be well.
Be well.
Okay, I give up. I'm just done. I'm done with this.
Okay.